Guys, what's going on? Hello and welcome to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath, and in this episode, I want to do something a little bit different. I'm currently working my way through Farscape, the complete series on Blu-ray. This is the Viavision Entertainment version of the show that includes, I think it's the most complete one on the market. It also includes the Peacekeeper Wars, which was the miniseries that sort of ties everything together. They had hoped for a fifth season, but it didn't happen. So they take that fifth season, condense it into a miniseries that's usually sold separately on most of the Blu-ray sets that I've seen. But I've just finished the first season, and I wanted to talk about my experience with the show, what I think about the first season. Spoiler free. I'm not out to spoil anything for you guys. In fact, I hope that I can convince some of you who haven't seen it to go check it out, because it's such a great show. And it's not, I've lived with this show for a long time. I watched this, back when it was new. It ran, let's start here. It ran from 1999 to 2004, I believe. I think the miniseries was 2004. I don't know that I finished it. I don't know that I watched the whole thing, but when I was younger, it was coming on the Sci-Fi Channel. They actually helped finance it. The story of the show is kind of interesting. It's a co-production between a lot of different people. So you got the Sci-Fi Channel in the US, and then it's also mostly an Australian production. It shot in Australia, a lot of Australian talent, crews, studios, stuff like that. And then the UK is in the mix as well. They help bring the show to life. And the show serves these different masters. It serves the US audience, Australian, the UK audience. And so it's unlike anything that I've ever seen before. The goal of the show, created by Rockne S. O'Bannon, Sequest, right? Various sci-fi shows. I just watched an episode of Amazing Stories that was done by, I think it was the one with Patrick Swayze, where he's a prisoner who can, he's on death row, but he can bring people back to, he can heal people with his touch. And I think that was a Rockne S. O'Bannon story. But also huge in the mix here is the Jim Henson Creature Shop. Now this is after Henson passed away, but Brian Henson continued to carry things forward and still does. They just did a Disney Plus show like 3 or 4 months ago, the Jim Henson Creature Workshop. So these are the creators, and they want to make a sci-fi series that's unlike Star Trek, unlike Babylon 5, unlike anything else that's on television. And by golly, they sure do. They succeeded. Farscape is unlike anything else. And I think even now in the 2020s, I don't know what else I would refer. It's so unique. So the premise of the show, in short, is that Ben Browder plays John Crichton, an astronaut, an American astronaut. He's on he's on this mission, and the Farscape mission, and the Farscape space shuttle, and he gets sucked through a wormhole, and he comes out on the other side of the galaxy, the other side of the universe, really, and he is a stranger in a strange land, hence the title. And what the show does is it flips the expectations. A lot of these shows, humans are the foundation. There are safe, there are injury, like Star Trek, everybody's human, right? You get your Vulcans, who are essentially human, and you've got you got Ferengi and stuff. I know, but humans are like most of the the Federation. There's a lot of human-looking people. A lot of people walking around on two legs, right? So Farscape's like, no, let's flip that. Now our guy, Ben Browder, John Crichton, is the only human in the show. He's the only human. Now we've got other actors. So Claudia Black is the kick-butt female lead, who's also, they have tons of... You want to talk about sexual chemistry, man. These two, Ben Browder and Claudia Black, just burning up the screen with that chemistry. Clearly, I'm listening to the commentaries, because the commentaries on this thing are great. There's a lot of commentaries where like, well, this is a scene where, they're like cutting up them. They do a commentary on what they think is the worst episode of the series. They're like, you ever have one of those episodes that it's like Rockne S. O'Bannon and like all the people that are associated with the show. And they're like, you ever have one of those episodes where just everything comes together and you see like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is the best we can do. This is not that episode. This episode just about broke us and nothing worked. It doesn't represent the show, and then they do a commentary for that. Again, nothing like what you expect. It goes against the expectations, which is amazing. That's what I want. That's always go against the expectations. Don't give people what we've already had. Anyway, so the chemistry between Claudia Black and Ben Browder. I'm listening to one of the commentaries, and he's talking about like somebody gets kissed on the eyebrow, and she's like, "Well, that must what a tease." Like he's like, "Oh, don't knock it. Kissing on the eyebrow is pretty hot." She's like, "I don't." He's like, "Let me do it." And then he like kisses her on the eyebrow during the commentary. She's like, "Yeah, I like that." I was like, "Whoa!" So all this was done years ago, right? These commentaries were recorded in 2003 and 2004, I think, but it's still good listening now. So these aliens that are walking around are so unlike us. Huge, puppet effects. And there are puppets that are entirely characters. So Rigel, Dominar Rigel, the 16th, I believe is his title. He's a puppet, but in the hands of the Jim Henson Creature Workshop, Yoda was a puppet too. But when they tried to make Yoda CGI, it doesn't work because we connect with that little piece of, that that catcher's mitt, that baseball glove. We connect with the silicone and the latex and the foam rubber and all that stuff. And in the hands of the Jim Henson Creature Workshop, they really bring this stuff to life. There's a puppet that's like essentially like, he's huge. He's a room. It's like Jabba the Hutt, right? Multi-operational arms. He's like a crab. I'm talking about Pilot for those that know the show. Like Pilot is such a huge puppet. That multiple people have to operate. He's like a crab man, like multiple arms and legs and stuff. But he never gets up because he's a puppet. But it's so believable. You don't even think, after the first episode, you don't even think about it being a puppet because it's so expressive and lifelike. And then, I'm not going to go through like all the characters, but the point is just that it flips the script, you see. And by bringing us into this strange land. Now, Crichton, from a storytelling perspective, Crichton is now our eyes and ears. And what he's seeing he's able to say, well, that's weird. I think it's in the pilot. He says, like, Steven Spielberg got it way wrong. Way wrong. And he's constantly making, like, he calls a bad guy Hannibal Lecter. That's for our benefit. He's our representative in this world. And the first season establishes so much and it covers so much ground. It's been years since I watched this show. We first started talking about this when I unboxed this in a Via Vision unboxing video. That's where this conversation first started. I talk a little bit about Farscape and that, but as I'm going back through it, now I finished the first season and I remember bits and pieces. I remember certain scenes, but my brain had kind of confused the scenes and I'm like, oh, that's not like I remember it. It's wonderful. So remarkable. The storytelling is so good and unconventional. And by the middle of the season, they're doing things. DNA Mad Scientist is an incredible episode about, it's what it sounds like. It's a mad scientist that's messing around with DNA, but then like who the bad guy is and what the bad guy is and the fact that it's all a puppet and it's a man in a suit who's standing on stilts, essentially, is how they do this in real life for hours a day. They're not afraid to bring in new characters well into the established series. They're not afraid to write out characters. It's that Joss Whedon thing, right? Where no character is safe. No character is above, no character is safe. I'll just say that. Anything could happen to anybody at any time. And that's great because you establish rules that like nothing is off the table. I'm not going to say what it is. But there's an episode, again, about halfway through the first season, and they're like in any other show, they present in the pre-opening credits, right? The teaser to hook you, so you sit through the commercial break. In the opening teaser, they establish like a Sophie's Choice, and you're like, well, how are they going to get out? How are they going to get out of this one? They don't. They have to go through with a horrible choice. And it happens like in the first 10 minutes of the episode. You're like, no other show on television at that time had the chutzpah to do what I'm seeing in the... And so here we are again, the early 2020s. And there's nothing... I can't think of anything else that's done this kind of thing. There's Stargate. And it's so interesting that so many of the actors would go on to guest or star. Ben Browder ends up on Stargate for what, 2 or 3 years? Like 40 episodes? Claudia Black does Stargate as well. But there's nothing really quite like it. It's such an odd show that goes against expectations. And I am loving it. Like, it has hooked me again so hard. The music, the effects, it's that late 90s, early 2000s CGI, but I have such nostalgia for that. Again, I was an adult. I was in my 20s when this stuff's coming out, and And then theaters, we've got The Phantom Menace, right? And so it's so interesting to see how, like, well, this is what science fiction looked like in 1999 and 2000. In 2000, we get Pitch Black, which also has Claudia Black. I think it's 2000. This is what science fiction looked like at that time. And for me, it's a trip down memory lane, but it's also a rediscovery of something that I knew I liked, but I don't know that I connected. I think I'm older now. As I said, I was an adult then, but I'm even older now, and I think I've got all this experience and all this, like, I've seen so much now. I've seen all these different shows, and I don't think I've ever seen anything else like Farscape. Those puppets, they would write for the puppets. They would say, write the puppets like they're characters, and you engage with them like they're real characters, like they're other actors. So no one is ever, like, winking to the puppet. The show would do a lot of comedy, but it's not a comedy show. It was flexible, so flexible, doing different things. But they never tip that it's a puppet. You never feel, because it's like the way, we buy Yoda because Luke Skywalker buys Yoda. I don't believe it. That is why you feel. We buy it, If you buy the puppets on this show, it's great. So, very interesting storytelling, very interesting premise, which essentially the premise is that John Crichton is trying to get back home. But by the middle of the first season, and it's not a spoiler, it's just a theme. By the middle of the first season, you start to realize, like, I don't think he can go home because he's seen so much and he's forever changed by his experiences. And even in that, the idea of, like, you can't go back home. That level of storytelling, that bittersweet, and he's dealing with this. He's dealing with the madness, right? The themes of, like, the stranger in a strange land who, he's been forever marked by what he's seen, by what he's done, and with the situation that he finds him in. So even if he could go home, this is his family now. It's so good. It's so good. So these Blu-rays carry forth a lot of the... I think I had... Again, we're talking about... This is like 15 years ago. I don't remember. Over a decade ago, for sure, for me. I had some DVDs. My memory is that it was an expensive show to collect because you had to get... Each DVD had like 3 episodes on it, maybe. Maybe it had 4. And my shelf was just full of Farscape DVDs, and they were, they're like $50 for I think they were probably 25 for one disc, and then you could get like 3 packs or whatever, like 50. So now we've got the Viavision treatment here, and there are other pressings. I know there's some US pressings, but I don't think any of them have the Peacekeeper Wars. The show was shot because of the age, right? The show was shot and finished in standard definition, but they've upscaled what they could here, and it looks good. It looks better than the DVDs did, that's for sure. But they've brought forth all the extras too. And so they've got the legacy, like for the beginning of the series, like the EPK kind of a thing where Brian Henson's like, here's what the show's going to be. Here's what we're trying to do. And they got Ben Browder, like first day of filming, apparently. He's like, well, let me tell you about John Crichton. And he's so young. What's funny is in the commentaries, they keep referencing, like it'll be Ben Browder and Claudia Black. And they're always like, look at that young guy. Look how young and naive he was. And they're recording these in 2003 or 2004. It was a range there between 2003 and 2004. They're still making the series at the time that they're recording these commentary tracks. They're talking about things that were like 2 or 3 seasons behind them, talking about how young they look. I'm like, how must they feel now, 18 years on from the series? I would love to talk to some of the people associated with this series and to ask them if they'd be willing to. I know Ben Browder's still out there representing his involvement. His love for Farscape comes through in all the commentaries. He wrote some of the episodes. Did he direct some of the episodes? He was very heavily involved. He can just rattle up. That was episode 15 of the first season. Oh, that was this tech guy. That was this cameraman. Knows all the details. But to go back to what I was saying, so all these legacy features have been brought forward, and it's just such like hours of stuff. So I was going to take a break after season 1. That's kind of what I do, is I'll watch a season of a show and then I take a little bit of a break and I move on to another show. I just kind of mix things around so I never feel like I'm spending too much time in one place, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. There's so much, my phrase is that there's so much good stuff under the sun. Let's explore it all. But I don't want to go on to anything else right now. I want to go straight into Farscape season 2. So I don't know when that video is coming. I don't want it to feel like work. I don't want to feel like I have to do a video about it. So maybe 6 months from now, whenever it is. But I'm probably going to start it immediately. I've just finished season 1 last night, and I was like, I gotta make a video about this. So that's my experience with Farscape. There's comics, there's novels. Now a lot of this stuff, the comics and the novels are out of print. Because again, it's almost 2-decade-old property. But some of the digital versions endure. They have put the comics together in a like an omnibus. So there were going to be 2 of them. And I don't think Volume 2 ever happened. I think Volume 1 did not sell well enough to warrant the Volume 2 omnibus. So this stuff's kind of out in the ether now. I got to see if I can track some of it down. But I'm just loving my rediscovery of the Farscape universe. And I wanted to ask what you think about it. If you've seen the show, what are your memories of it? What's your interpretation of it? There's a lot of appreciation guides that I may track down too, probably after I finish the series, because so much of this felt new to me. I was like, I don't remember that. So I don't want to spoil anything for myself, but what a great universe. What a great realization. Such firm science fiction concepts with a little bit of space opera, with a little bit of fantasy. Nothing else like it. So Farscape Season 1, those are my thoughts. We'll reconvene here soon for a Farscape Season 2 video. But again, I want to talk about it. I don't want these videos to be a one-sided conversation. I want to celebrate these things. And I want CerealAtMidnite to be a place for us to geek out about the stuff that we love. Regardless of how old it is. So do you love the show? Let's talk about it. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Take care. Until next time, here's where to go and what to do.